By now, we all know that a man is more sensitive than a woman, and he's vulnerable to different things than she is. So, most of the time, a woman has absolutely no clue that she might be saying or doing anything that could even be remotely related to attack, blame, or criticism. This is where we need to understand the power of our language and that words often hold very different meanings for a man than they do for a woman. For example, I was counseling an engaged couple who'd hit a roadblock on their way to the altar, metaphorically, not literally, of course. As they struggled to understand one another, the woman looked at her fiance and said, "I hate that I'm causing you so many problems. Maybe you'd be better off without me. Maybe it'd be better if I just walked away." Now, you can understand that statement, right? She sounds like she's willing to sacrifice her happiness for his. But that's not what he heard at all. What he actually heard was, "You better get your act together, butter. I'm out of here." He was deeply wounded by her statement and didn't want it to show. So he stiffened his upper lip and shut her out to protect himself. When I told her how he heard her statement, she looked at us both in disbelief. Then he confirmed my translation from female expressive language into male receptive language. What she'd said was not what he had heard. His sensitivity to rejection, to not being good enough, to his failure to please her, had colored the meaning of her words. He was listening through the filter of his emotions, through his vulnerability and intense fear of being found inadequate. So, I've learned to speak two languages. As a woman, I get where gals are coming from. Sometimes we can be amazingly direct in asking for what we want. At other times, we're not sure what we want, so we can also be pretty vague. Most of us have a hard time getting the men we love to understand us. It often feels like they're just trying to fix us. So naturally, I speak female. As the mother of three sons, I've spent a lot of time studying the male experience too. It's been a joy to watch my boys grow into men, marry, and become parents themselves. They've taught me a lot, and I'm still learning from them. I've also studied the psychology of men and traditional masculinity at the graduate and the postdoctoral levels, and I've even taught a university class on this very popular subject. What I've learned: most women don't have a clue about men's experience, and that most men don't know how to explain it. So I've also learned to speak male. Differences in body language. Dr. Deborah Tannen is an expert in the field of interpersonal communication. She conducted a study of same sex pairs of children, elementary school through high school, who were asked to take two chairs into a room and wait there for the researcher. I used to show video clips of this study in my class at Azusa Pacific University. It was amazing to watch. The female pairs were consistently engaged in face to face conversation while they were waiting for the experimenter. Conversely, the boys placed their chairs in a side by side configuration. They rarely said more than a few words to one another and avoided eye contact. So, just how do you think this tendency might play out in conversations between men and women? Well, for a man, the face to face approach may make him feel like he's being challenged, especially if his woman is upset. Instinctively, he prepares to defend himself. And as every football fan knows, the best defense is a good offense, which tends to be not so good for her. Here's a tip for you. One of the best ways to get a man of any age to talk to you is simply to engage in a joint activity that puts you side by side. Then let your conversation flow naturally, and before you know it, he'll be talking about more serious stuff. Find an enjoyable activity, or semi-enjoyable activity like washing dishes, that he would like to do together that puts you side by side. Don't pressure him to start talking. Just listen and see what happens. For women, the side by side approach may feel like her man isn't that interested in her, or that he simply doesn't give a rip about what she's saying. If she feels like she's being ignored, she'll hit harder with her words, trying to get him to respond to her. Here's another tip. If she appears to be upset about something, look into her eyes with compassion. This isn't a stare down, okay? Let her know you really want to understand her. Then give her a chance to speak and listen carefully. After a few moments, say, "Let me see if I've got this right. You're telling me that blank. Did I get it right?" Then you want to pause for her answer. And then say, "Did I miss anything?" Again, pause for her answer. Then, "How can I help?" Pause for her answer. Now, if you get lost in what she said, just tell her you got lost and ask her to try one more time. It's okay to tell her that you need her to give it to you bit by bit. She's been following me too, right? And if you don't know what to say, simply tell her, "I don't know what to say. I wish I did. I really wish I did." And if it's appropriate, make physical contact with her while you're talking. Differences in quantity. As previously noted, men tend to listen in sentences. They're looking for a problem to solve or a purpose for relating the information. However, women tend to talk in paragraphs, sometimes volumes. Of course, sometimes a man talks more than his woman does, and sometimes a man is more anxious than his woman is. Yes, like anything else in life, there will always be individual differences. So keep that in mind, just in case you weren't already making allowances for your mate's uniqueness. Differences in word choice. Here's another potential gender differences. Men tend to be more literal in their word choice, whereas women tend to use general, more inclusive statements. It's how we were taught to be considerate and relational in our conversations. Remember Sean and Nicole? She wanted to stop and get something to eat, and Sean thought she was asking if he wanted to get something to eat. He took her question literally and said no. Her feelings were hurt. Jim and Lisa had a similar misunderstanding. They'd made plans for a get together at another couple's condo for a good home cooked meal. At the last minute, her friend's husband contacted Jim to let them know they'd invited several others to join them for the evening. As he shared the update with Lisa, she felt overwhelmed. She explained that she'd had a headache most of the day and was worried that she might be coming down with a bug, but she hadn't wanted to back out on their plans because she knew the other wife would be going to a lot of trouble to fix a great meal for them. However, now that it had become a group event, Lisa really wanted to stay home and rest. "I just don't feel like being around a whole bunch of people tonight," she explained. "How do you feel about rescheduling for another time?" Jim's response was that he didn't want to cancel. Lisa was hurt and angry, and Jim couldn't figure out why. Can you? He answered the question she asked. He didn't want to reschedule. She asked how he felt about rescheduling, and he told her. But that wasn't her question. She was politely asking him if he would tell them she didn't feel well, so they would need to reschedule. But that wasn't what she said, or what he heard. The long and short of it all, I fully realize I've only revealed a very small portion of the miscommunication iceberg here. Perhaps I'll need to write a whole nother book, or another course, or maybe create a smartphone app that can translate female into male, and vice versa, or that gives you the perfect response to anything the opposite sex says. That'd be cool, eh?